당은저 그새 기부 남는 기부 등기 투모에 남기람 림발로 장비고 어다디 고소시 그새 당은 저 이사 아코알이야 안에 지게 기부 등기 값소 내가도 저 냠는 제디 군모로 마서나 타바더니 일로 제디레스 지난 타바더니 군에 라위게 토네 당은 저게 냠는 제디 진바다 수준 써봐 전주에 3대 셰럽티 냠는 제고래 세지 그새 디빅스 지금 되스 고조로 그새 어더스테 셰어로
Good evening. Last week, having completed then the practices that are in accordance with a practitioner of initial capacity, we started to look at the presentation of the practices that are shared with a practitioner of intermediate capacity. So a practitioner of intermediate capacity has as their motivation liberation, and that's what they're striving for. And how to achieve liberation? They engage in various practices. And those are practices such as ethical restraint, generosity, patience, joy, perseverance, concentration, and wisdom. And last week we started to have a look at this section.
아드니 자랑 안쪽에 그새 기부 중요 값을 쉐디 안쪽에 강화성의 동안에 탈도게 삼바게 탈고도 셈피게 땅한성의 동안에 탈고 와서 나선 동안에 탈네 근데 원대고 봐 토고도 셈피 되니기 장 원대고 봐 되니기 듬바의 장지 대 원대고 봐 듬바 되니기 듬베 디토네 땅한테 진바의 주진념내 제대로 그승이 마셔야 돼 다들인 안쪽 기부 진기 값이 되다 나선의 동안에 타와서 미치기 민도 대자다 하다 밀게 바이나 동아도 지사다 코로에 동아 타달래 타고도 내래 타르네 안나 타르바세 토고도 무엇에 삼마 타바더니 삼바께 디장에 되리 디장에다 타바더니 삼바께 토네다 타바더니 와자 타바토지게 탑람이야 진보 주전서 전주를 하냐면 해야지 다디 기부 등이 값을 해야 돼 디스무래.
The practitioner of initial capacity, they, as we saw at the start of last week, they are marked by, or what indicates someone as being a practitioner of initial capacity, is they have given rise to this uncontrived, this spontaneous wish to be freed of the possibility of rebirth in the lower realms in their next life. And therefore, their motivation is to ensure that not only do they not fall into the lower realms, but rather that they achieve a rebirth in the higher realms as a human or as a god. A practitioner of intermediate capacity builds on that prior realization and expands it, coming to gain great certainty, coming to see with great clarity that it's not just the low realms that are pervaded by suffering, but in fact samsara in its entirety is. And thereby they strive for freedom from samsara in its entirety. They strive for liberation. And so that's their motivation. And how to achieve that or fulfill that motivation, that's engaging in the practices of generosity, ethical restraint, and so forth.
당은 탈바더니 길로 기고래서 공부래서 탈바더니에서 탈바세디 가와라 탈고 거래라는 내가 뉴모보 옹기 코월 기와렘바 내래 탈고 거래. 나도 다데바도 코와 도면에 다데바도 레다 뉴모보 옹기 코월레 기와렌디 거와. 지나디 다코 레다 뉴모보 옹기 코월레 기와렘바들레 탈고 거래. 레다 뉴모보 옹기 살레 기와에나 동아이 거래 밀리 기와에나 동아 강아이 거래. 아냐와 이다 dundur kiawenda kanga yin barwa chisa deda leda nyomo ongi so rawa meba che so rawa meba leda nyomo ongi kiawa len chinjela ne dunga go res chisa da tarya di kawa targo go res lamna na su kawan targo le leda nyomo ongi kiawa le ba dele targo go res chisa dene tarbigi da tarbigi tarbasa tarbadi dinya zo go to go res oda.
When we hear that a practitioner of intermediate capacity is striving for liberation, or that can be equally expressed as striving for freedom, here it's important to understand what freedom or liberation means. So what is it that a practitioner of intermediate capacity is striving to be liberated from or freed from? So on one level, one can say they want to be freed from cyclic existence. or they want to be freed from samsara. But if we go at a deeper level, explicitly, what they want to be liberated from is the uncontrolled rebirth in samsara that is caused by contaminated karma accumulated by the afflicted minds. This is what a being of intermediate capacity is striving to be liberated from, striving to attain freedom from uncontrolled rebirth due to contaminated karma and afflictions. This is what they're striving to be freed from.
미지 쫀가 나루 셔바다 강보 짜 강보 지나봐 고잡 고다 이고 짜 잡제 아니 고 미지 강변나 루셔바나 고 치료 털고 말와 마타바데 가르쳤으네 짜이 강보디 고셔와 짜이 강보디 파 또르지 메바서베는 고 치료 털고 두라 어디나지 안저다다 코발레 마타와지 가르지기르라네 레다 뇨모바 니기 아니 당고 뇨모바지 뇨모바디 온게 레사 근데 뇨모바 레디 니보디 라완 메바가 코발레기 나 계지 코발레 타마타와 되바디 수지고르스네 레다 뇨모바 이지 그래서 일단 레다 뇨모니도 코와 칭지에서 타발레 마선다 담야디 레다 뇨모바 지고레스 이제 나당한 쪽에 가르쳐오래라나 당한도 코발레 타려라 가르 메바서 고르스 레다 뇨모바 이 메바서 고레지레 세상 레다 뇨모바 이데 빵 메바서나 딱 균이 녀보 땡죠 곰지 레다 뇨모바데 메바다 남에 깨야 메바서 균이 깨야 메바서 유튜브에나 탈바리다 일단 레다 뇨모바 자원이 사원나 제가 빵비게 빵소나 빵베 빵바데라 탈바서 세상 당한도 디토구도세 디도느냐고 도니르세 디토고 레다 뇨모바 사원나 제가 빵베 빵바세디 토부두세지 디도느냐 이야기 된다 야 삼바들라 탈바도니 로세고.
It's important that one has great clarity on what it means to strive for liberation, what it means to have achieved a liberated state. It means that one is striving to be liberated from contaminated karma and afflictions. Because it's these as contaminated karma and afflictions that lead to this process of uncontrolled rebirth, life after life in the suffering realms of samsara, whether one falls into the suffering lower realms or in the upper realms, one continues to suffer as long as one remains trapped in this prison of samsara. This prison of samsara is not constructed from bricks and mortar and iron bars. It's constructed by our contaminated karma that has been accumulated by our own afflicted minds. It's these afflictions that are the chains or the fetters that keep us bound within this prison of samsara. This then is, of course, directly referring to the analogy of samsara being like an unbearable prison that one is bound within. And that analogy is referring to the causes of our suffering, the afflicted minds and contaminated karma. It's this that that cyclic existence is constructed from. The prison of samsara is constructed from our contaminated karma and afflictions. So it's this that the practitioner is striving to abandon and become liberated from. Because it's when they have abandoned the afflicted minds completely together with their seeds that they are liberated from the effects of the afflictions, that liberation or freedom is achieved. This is what a practitioner of intermediate capacity is striving for.
녀모바 사바나 제바 빵빵 톱고도 선배 삼로디 디야 슈셔셔 다야들이 진짜 타바도 유로 진짜 데네게 타바도 유로 선 녀모바 사바나 제바 빵빵 톱고도 섬제 디 돈돈이야제 다 디토비야게 돈다라는 내가 가르치고서는 나 개와사고로 징한주 바시 손에 등하줄이야 디 토비에게 바치들라 아내가 소리 뇽모바릭 망고여로 변데 세나 세야당 샹레 뉘비 삼바 세야당 샹레 뉘비 삼바디 메바 소야라 추림 소야당 아주 세나 삼바디 뇽모바로 디소 메바 소야라 아내 가소리 가서 진비에 냠는지야 다 샹레 뉘비 삼라디라 아니 지게 미샹다게 소소야 지지디 엔텔레 수여마도 버지 다음상 콩라야다디 되는구와 디 소야게 콘트로티 메바 된다라 수여복 수비에 냠는지야 아니 아직은 어떻게 개회 자와 제발에 진행 맞춰봐다디 깔래카 상이 지원하니 레로인구와 레로디 뇽모 바래 니 메바세야라 개회 철의 자와 제를 냠는지 준주시야 안데 준주시야 당한 쪽에 아직 개회 냠는 제발에 심 남양 직 디벨라다 마사심 남양 소아도 뇽모 마차이고 지산 디 남양디 도지 메바도야라 이게지 신이로 거미야 당한 쪽에다 냠는 지가 니서 마신바 먹고 용으로 마신바 하 먹어야지 제가 하 먹어야지 하고 얘기 된다 또야 마도 반사 디 또야 된다 셰럽 냠는 지야 셰럽 냠는 지야 제바진 디 두스 냠는 지야도 만족에 되는 뇽모 비리티게 마 슉슉슉 단 거로 봐 진짜 탈바도 토비에게 된다 뇽모 먹어지 마 슉슉 땅에는 탈바 토야를 다 냐는 거 진짜 당한 쪽에 탈바도니에 시 삼바디 뇽모 바사반다 제바 뻥바디 디토부도 선배 삼보에 자야 돼. 디슈크셔 따야 돼. 디슈크는 디토한테 당도 진바 줄여서가 냠나 제디 디도 쪽에 뇽모 바디게 마슈슈 땅 거래. 된다 디래.
Liberation or freedom then comes from abandoning the afflicted minds together with their seeds. Because then one is liberated from the effects of the afflictions. In order to achieve the state of liberation, one needs to give rise to the mind that strives single-pointedly to achieve the state of liberation. This mind needs to be generated to the extent that it arises spontaneously, it's uncontrived. So how does one get to that point? Well, there are two parts to this. One needs to accumulate a merit or virtue so as to propel one forward. Secondly, or alongside this, one needs to overcome the obstacles that prevent us from moving forward. So there's these two aspects of the practice, accumulation and purification, that need to be done together. And how so? So if we think of some of the obstacles that one encounters, one needs to, in order to overcome them, one needs to cultivate the opposing mind, the contrary mind. Because it's as one strengthens the virtuous mind, its contrary, non-virtuous mind proportionately weakens. So for example, the attitude of miserliness, the self-centered attitude, this is a hindrance to oneself, a hindrance to one's development. To overcome this, one engages in cultivating the mind of generosity, of practicing giving in a variety of ways. Similarly, the mind of harmful intent, all forms of mental aggression towards others of whatever strength, these are hindrances to one's spiritual development. To overcome this, one develops the contrary mind, the mind of patience. So as one's patience grows and strengthens, the mind of harmful intent weakens. To overcome the obstacle of laziness, and laziness is of several types, but to overcome laziness, one develops the virtuous mind of joyous perseverance. To overcome the distracted mind, a mind that is distracted by afflictions, one needs to develop calm abiding. In order to overcome the darkness of ignorance, and here ignorance can be understood in many ways, one of which is being a mere not knowing, not understanding the paths to cultivate and the minds to abandon, one needs to develop wisdom to overcome that and other types of ignorance. So here, as one engages in this process of, on the one hand, accumulating minds of virtue and weakening the afflicted minds, then as one progresses in this, the attainment of the goal of liberation grows ever, ever closer.
안디네 자 제사다 상유 줌nen디기 아니 지 총고라 담보고 안디네 템바시 세숨고로 템바시 제사나 안주기 타바더니 게 삼노께알라 안디녜야 가르고고르세네 가네스 타바더니 지 야도니 지여베네 누가디 바주 직통된 먼저 담가체디 디 야가도 보고 세지고라 지산 누가디레 교마도나 아는 가족이 딜레 야가시 고도 선배 삼링 바로 지산 가도 동아들이야 탈도게 삼바마께나 타바도니 삼바기 투고 말 디네 자당 가족이 냠는 제발라 안주 하고 말 먹어봐 상에 주면 뒤에 갈 송고선 데바시 있어 송어라 지산 데바 송도 갈 송선 동아 데바 군주 데바 고데 람데세 데바시 요레세 어디 소다 상에 주면 돼 송요도 갈 송고라서 동아 셰버 자오세 동아 세다 하고 그래서 신고 그래서 지산 동아 가네치를 동아 러비에 동아도 하고 그래지 지산 동아 셰네 다 동아데 가나요 여기 아니 셰나 다 동아 셰바나 아다 동아데 타고도 선배 삼는 얘기로 봐 지산 다 동아 타고 그나 동아데 가르 끼고 유 가르 끼고 그래서 유리 군주 데바데 지산 군주데 디 유리 빵고 그래서 다 담보 동아 하고 그래서 동아 셰버 자았어 니 제라 동아요의 유디 군주 데바세데 지상 군주 데바세데 빵고 그래서 지상 딥빵 마빵바이나 유디 마빵바나 제보디 용구레스 지상 제보도 구구메나 유디 빵고 그래 지상 다 군주 빵을 자세데 니베데야 군주 세데 빵고레 동아요 유야 유디 군주 세데 군주 데바디 빵고 그래제 다 군주 빵인데 가령 그래서네 지상 군주 빵베 빵바디 디 타바레스 지상 고파 고된세데레스 지상 고파 문도 자세도 니 고된데 소수규라 이렇게 끼와 토바지고래 토바지고래 디 톱나 내 고와래 타바레지 고파 문도 제 지상 고파디 토베야기 된다라 네 가르쳐고선 남공 고래서 남공 발자 오세수 지상 상이 저 덴바시 송유도 동아시아발자 군종 뽕라자 고파 문도 제 남공 발자 오세수 송고 지상 덴바시 송
The very first teaching our founder teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni, gave was to teach the Four Noble Truths, and these are then contained within the first turning of the Wheel of Dharma. The Four Noble Truths were presented first by the Buddha so as to enable his students to generate the mind that strives for liberation, and the mind that does so in an uncontrived or spontaneous way. So the reason for the presentation of the Four Noble Truths right at the outset by the Buddha was because in order for someone to achieve something that they have never experienced before, they need to cultivate the wish for that. And in order to cultivate the wish for something they've never experienced, they need to understand what it is that is hindering them, and what the current state is, as opposed to the state that is possible. Therefore, the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths: the truth of suffering, the truth of origin, the truth of cessation, and the truth of paths. So to look at those four in brief, the Buddha taught that the truth of suffering is to be known. And why known? It's only through knowing knowing suffering will one give rise to the wish to be freed of suffering. If one doesn't know what suffering encompasses, if one doesn't know both the breadth and the subtlety of suffering that one experiences, one will not be able to give rise to a wish to be freed from this breadth and subtlety of suffering. So therefore the Buddha taught suffering is to be known. But suffering comes about in dependence on causes, and therefore the second noble truth was then taught, true origins, or the truth of true origins. And true origins the Buddha taught is to be abandoned. Suffering is to be known, true origins to be abandoned. And the origins of suffering are the contaminated karma accumulated through our afflicted minds. And here the Buddha demonstrated that suffering is a result arising from its origin, these afflicted minds. And until the afflicted minds are eliminated, the unwanted result of suffering will inevitably follow. So therefore, the second noble truth was taught, true origins, which are to be abandoned. When one abandons the afflicted mind together with their seeds, one achieves true cessations, the cessation of suffering. And this is the third noble truth, true cessations. And this, the Buddha taught, is to be achieved. So suffering is to be known, the origins are to be abandoned, and the cessations are to be achieved. How are they achieved? Through the fourth noble truth, that of true paths. And it's true paths that are to be accomplished.
So
yeah, that's one thing. So the true paths that are to be accomplished, these are the practices that one engages in to cultivate the paths, the mental paths in one's continuum, and thereby achieve cessations. The first of the Four Noble Truths is the truth of suffering, which the Buddha taught. This is to be known. In order to know it, one has to understand what is meant by this term suffering. Understand it in both its breadth as well as its subtlety. And the Buddha taught what is suffering in different ways. The best known is the threefold division of suffering. The suffering of physical and mental pain, the suffering of transient happiness, and the suffering of an all-pervasive suffering. It's these three that need to be abandoned, and abandoned entirely. To the extent that they have not yet been abandoned, we will suffer to that extent. So these three types of suffering, we need to come to know. Of those three, it's only the first, the suffering, or the suffering of physical and mental pain, that we do know. Because whenever we experience a feeling of suffering or a sensation of suffering, whether it's physical or mental, that is what is meant by the suffering of physical and mental pain, such as ache and pains in our body. This is experienced through a feeling of suffering or a sensation of suffering, and that is this first type of suffering, the suffering of physical and mental pain. But the second two types, these are still unknown to us. The suffering of change, or better translated as the suffering of transient happiness, and the third, all-pervasive suffering. These are still hidden to us. They are unrealized by us.
칼라 산에 대화 줘야다. 아니 둘로 사바로 그 대화 줘야다. 나지 참장으로 대화 줘 직방한다 기부 쇼 참장 당벌에도 배김도 호러지 대화 쇼여로 내가 주는 우드는 항상 어디 되게 말이야. 이 깔래든 다 줘야게 되봐 이제 누가 유루고 그래서 내게 사실이 대화 차상 대서 유에 누가래. 아주 이 유둥아에 하고 말 비배 때문에 야고 쇼를 삼지 내내게 대화도 되니 라야게 don다랑 도 베주시고 당쪽에 니 don도니야지 니 파파야게 삼당고 말아 니 don도니고 말아 don도니야 와서 니 라야게 don다랑 도 베주시고 제여도 내가 견통고 말아 견마 통화자 내가 탈도게 삼바지고 말아 내가 탈도게 삼바마지 와서 먼저 코라 둥아래 탈투고 말아 지사 되니서 대수샤상 둥아이 유에 둥아래 지사 땡기 대화 유에 둥아 대화에나 남상 유는 둥아 차로 지사 때무요 말아 니 거야 말아 니 방고 그래서 거다 니 견다고 그래서
The first type of suffering, this threefold division, that of the suffering of physical and mental pain. This is the coarse level of suffering that everyone experiences, whether physical or mental. And this is what is readily accepted as suffering. So whether it's, one experiences mental suffering or suffering that arises from the physical body, so physical suffering, this is the coarse feeling or sensation of suffering, and is what is widely regarded as suffering and everyone wants to be freed of. The second type of suffering, which is still unknown to us, more commonly translated as the suffering of change, but better translated as the suffering of transient happiness. This is our experience of contaminated happiness. So it's our experience of the feeling of happiness. This is actually suffering. In an illustration that's easy to understand on a day like today, it's really cold. So here we're suffering, it's coarse suffering. So there's suffering of suffering. Then we put the heat on, lots of clothes, and now we're warm and we're happy. This now is contaminated happiness. It's transient happiness. And this is the suffering of transient happiness. Why? Because this feeling of happiness, the sensation of happiness, whilst we longed for it, we yearned for it, we strove to achieve it, even though now that it has been achieved, it will not last. Despite longing to always stay just at the right temperature, it won't happen. We'll end up overheating. The happiness that we long for and have achieved ends up turning into suffering, hence the suffering of change, the literal translation, the suffering of change, because that happiness will change into suffering. And this suffering of transient happiness refers to all these feelings of happiness that we experience and we long for, such as eating delicious food, having new clothes, having an enjoyable time with our friends. So when we're eating the delicious food, or we've purchased and wearing new clothes, we're having a nice time with our friends, we are experiencing happiness. We fulfilled our hopes. But that happiness is transient and will change, and we will then experience the suffering of suffering again. So here, part of the problem that comes from the suffering of transient happiness is that we don't recognize it as suffering. This is the happiness that we long for, that we strive for, that dominates our way of thinking. Our thoughts are always about how to overcome coarse suffering and achieve this very transient happiness, which is the suffering of transient happiness. Because of our striving for this type of this feeling of happiness, which is actually the suffering of transient happiness, very little thought goes to the abandoning of suffering, in its entirety, the abandonment of samsara. Rather, we're longing for samsaric happiness, transient happiness, contaminated happiness. This way of thinking, of longing for, of striving for such temporary happiness, such happiness of so little meaning, this way of thinking is what we need to abandon.
내내게 먼저 사치기 대화디 난 유유 동아레스 지난 유유 동아라도 그 대화데 지어디 템부요 말레스 지난 남성 유네 동아 지리용도 지난 템부요 말 배반상 당한 내내 지리 대화 지리랑 안쪽에 판도요 말레스 지난 안쪽을 가르고 오세 그디나 그디 띵이 대화고 그래 그디나 유어기는 로에명에 띵이 대화고 그러마다 내내 대화 지용 남성 유 동아 강아테는 내내 지금 판도요 말 지난 유유 동아 대성한테 고야요 말레스 뭐가 빵고 그래스디 다 가르고 그러서는 띵이 대화고 그디나 대화 유어기는 로에면 그디나 대화네 대화 짜야게 되고 그래 대화 고야 뛰고 그러마도 내내기 때 대화 유저에게 동아용할 대화디 대화 템부 말레스 띵아서 다 텔이야 디 지텔을 되냐지 좀 차바긴 되는 지금 말이지.
When we experience the feeling or sensation of happiness, this is happiness, and it's fine to call it as such. But we need to develop the understanding that this is also the suffering of transient happiness. We need to come to understand that this longing, that this happiness that we long for and strive for so, is not worth our effort, it's not worth the value we place on it, it's not worth all the energy we put into achieving, because it is transient. It doesn't last. When it achieves, immediately momentarily changes momentarily, and soon will end up in suffering. Moreover, this happiness deceives us. We keep being fooled, thinking that this is the happiness worthy of our endeavor. But what is worthy of our energy is striving to achieve lasting, stable happiness. A happiness that doesn't change. A happiness that is never interrupted by suffering. This is worthy of striving for. Not the transient happiness that always disappoints us, always lets us down, always leaves us insatiated.
나는 대니게 교회 동아래 지상 초가 사치게 대화되게 동아게래 대디와요 말 디방고네 나아서라는 디바 방샤베네 된 동아게야마도 대화해야 말마다 사매기 디바는 가서 띵이 디바는 가서 토요 말이다 나아서 직진 베밀이 동아 대화냐디 다 사치게 대화다 유의 대화 동아디래다 유의 동아시다 가서 디 보고로 받아 디메나 게디나 강아자야 차로 받아 지사 디니 유의 동아시야디 동아래 호빵고래서 빵샤네 지금 민도와서 비게자 삼수 용으로 와다 삼나는 용으로 와디 빵샤바데 게디나 동아자냐 최지기에서 동아자 강아자 최되네 디니 용으로 시우샤사레스자 디젠데 디사 마레선 비게 디파나 디사 마레선 비게 다 삼노 나라가서 용으로 와다네.
It's important that it's understood clearly what is meant by, in this presentation on the suffering of transient happiness. Because this first type of suffering, the suffering of physical and mental pain, there's very little confusion there. No one wants to suffer physically, no one wants to suffer mentally. Everyone wants to abandon that first type of suffering. But there is a possibility of confusion when someone hears that happiness, worldly happiness, is actually the suffering of transient happiness, and therefore is not worthy of striving for. Because this may be misunderstood, and one may think that Buddhists are just wanting to suffer. All Buddhists think there should be that their experience is suffering, and that suffering is almost what is wanted. This, of course, would be a mistaken way to understand this.
사치기 대화디 간주로 고고어라 간주디 된된이라고 보라 간주로 고고어라 바다 간주 생각 쪽에 다디 내가 불러 간주 사치기 대화디 매나 간주기 대화용하 매려 지산 대화 매 지산 간주 사치기 대화 고고어라 사치기 대화 된이를 제야다 디 된된이야다 디 라야가 된다라 베질 제야다 탑지 땅고에 땅고 보러 와 내가 디 땅고 고고어라.
So therefore, I'll say clearly, contaminated happiness is something we need. Temporary happiness is something that we need to strive for, and we do need to achieve temporary happiness, contaminated happiness.
다 사실이 대화도 된된이라고 볼 때, 단 이나양 사실 대화도 된된이가 좀 말해서 그래. 내가 먼저 된된이 배지 땅에 마도 쪼어데 가서 디 비주얼은 내가 사직이 대화대양은 대화대 라야기 돈달라 양아주게 최대한지야 다사야 동야 토나 안데 지게 내 최대한 돈에 두신 사직이 대화라야기 배수지 다 쪼어 돈들이야 쪼어데 가서 띵이 대화대 지사 다디 교여르디나 내가 디 비주단에 띵이 대화로야 토비하기 돈달라 아니 띵이 대화 토비하기 돈달라 배수지 오래지래 맞아 다 띵이 대화 토비하기 삼도기네 마호하지 사직이 대화 짱짱 디자지고 삼데 되는 배주지바나 네 고발 탈투 말해서 지사 디 내가 먼저 디 배주단에 돈도니야 또 돈도니야 가서 띵이 대화 토비하기 돈달라 근데 배주 대화 돈도니고 탈비고 하디 띵기 대화 탈바들이 지사 또 탈바 그 탈바동이 돈이 깨다 내가 다들 데라 내가 와도 디텐데라 유유동아도 마도 전 대화녀에 매가서 니 대화도 많이 오바했나 나도야 안 최지야 고급이야 강아지고 와 지사 되네 자 최지야 고고래 지사 냠내지야 고고래 띵기 대화 토백에 탑람 냠수 림발라 나도에 내가기 나주기 유유 대화도 고고와 지사 유유 동아도 고고래 지사 디 동아도 내가 돈은 야야다 냠내지 띵이 자와디 탈바 토백에 배주시 오래지네
With understanding then that contaminated happiness, worldly happiness, is something worth striving for, we need to watch our mind and guard against, though, that the wish for worldly happiness doesn't dominate us. So whilst we do need worldly happiness, contaminated happiness, with our wisdom we need to understand that this is a tool. It is not the end goal in and of itself. The final goal is lasting, stable happiness, happiness that isn't transitory. But in order to achieve transitory happiness, the happiness of liberation, one does require good circumstances in order to spiritually develop, to practice the Buddha Dharma. So therefore one does need good circumstances, including worldly happiness. Because when we are experiencing a reduction in the coarseness of our suffering, we have more capacity to engage in our spiritual development. However, if we remain confused and strive with all our mental energy repeatedly just to achieve further and further temporary happiness, we will remain distracted from where our focus should be, which is to use temporary happiness as a tool so that we can achieve our goal of achieving lasting, stable happiness. So here we need to rebalance our approach to worldly happiness.
Gabriel Yabuana, Gabriel Yamaba, Toro Maja, Lam Rim Text, Yan Suyu Tango, Tangazu Carson, Mota did it, Chicangadu, that in Pantome, that did go with the Motasawa, Yabuch Kudu, some big some Dunish Liga. That Dunia Legi or there, someone on the Carson, the Mota did Mohos in the Motasawa to regulate Sao do some jet. Di Rag Dondala, Tushade, and the Lagalu Sawa. 지상 우사와가 다 모더니 디디 지규엔 자탄 모호스네 파비 유샤바 베제마다 샤샤베네 만솔레 사바라에 우이 사이도 레갈레알 강아 마치고 지상 모더니 부들레 규노 아디도 고민도 더 이네 사바치 요고도 뭐 사바치 요고도 섬제 사바 녀기 우이 녀에 우이 특별히 되다라 님바디 규는 통구통글레 어디디 베시 당장아서 베시 당 파하로 수로 베시 당에 전 코사바 사고 베시 당고로 베시 당 그래서 베시마다 아제 규는도서 샤샤바도 교라고 그래 진짜 디 베시 당이 전에 맞아 저거 미유디 그래서 사바라에게 된다 사바 토백이 된다 베시 우이 사바 차고 와 진짜 디 베시 당이 된 우사 이네 우이디 사사와제라 우이 사사와제라 제 사와 녀 따따라도 인베 파샤제 사와 녀지 딘파 샤샤 차고 베디나지레 아 졸라 다다 베지 땅야라 대화디 다데 유인네 사식이 대화마도 베지 땅에 내려와 되지나 사식 베 대화들에 꾼다제 띵이 되어도 제면 다 딜에 타고도 띵이 되어 토고도 이나다 내가다 되어도 수부 되어도 셈 되어도 기우 매면은 나 쉬셔야 거가 빠시라기도 제자 디네 장 수부 되야다 안 소소가 튕긴 상화다 고고도 삼제 디네기 내가 돈이 녀제 디 비주 땅에 미유조디 띵이 되어 토백에 타르바서 토백에 돈달라 땅한지 루심 TV 토네 다 냠는 제리 진소 파신 쪽에 냠는 제리 차고 어두스 비주 땅 냠는 제고 그래서 지사다 돈달라 동하다고 방고를 톱자조 디마레 디네갑 잠레마도 띵이 디장장 삼다도 되는 타르고 말이 디장장 삼다고 말해서 그러다.
To understand this, we can use an analogy. If the car you have is really unreliable, and perhaps on a cold night like tonight when you leave here, and you try and start it, nothing happens. Or in the morning when you leave for work, it's really cold, doesn't start. Immediately one will think, this car is useless, I need something far better than this. This is unreliable. But one doesn't have a bank account full of money, so one now needs to start saving for a new and reliable car. So when one is in this position, if one says, this old car, I'm not going to bother with it, I'm rather going to get by without a car until I can buy a new one, that's going to serve as an obstacle if one has to walk to work. Rather, one will continue to use the old car, try and be patient with all its frustrations, and the whole while, whilst using one's old car, one is saving. One is saving with the new car in mind. And when one has saved enough, one happily gets rid of the old car and buys the new one. So this is what we should be, how we should approach this. With an understanding that contaminated happiness is not the lasting goal to strive for, but is rather a required end to a means. We should experience contaminated happiness with no regret, without difficulty. We should experience contaminated happiness, but not allowing ourselves to become deceived by it. Knowing we need good conditions in order to be able to achieve our final goal. Because if our suffering is overpowering, if our suffering overpowers us, we will not be able to develop enough to achieve liberation. So therefore, we make use of worldly happiness, situations of comfort, but we don't allow ourselves to be overwhelmed or deceived by them. We keep our mind focused on the actual goal, liberation.
당연히 저와 동아세 유에 동아서 사실이 대화대 유에 동아 다도 섬단의 유에 동아데 가브리엘랑 섬단 하고 대지 기후에 다양 강아 최선 선배 섬 대지 조 기후죠 나다 차차유도 선배 유조여 버데 야 대서 하고 레라도 다 갈래 가셔도 가서는 잡아 두시 동아세 된가서 하 먹어야 돼 두시 동아세 돼 갈래 가셔 차려 하 먹어야 돼 두시 동아세 가서는 아주 풍부되기래 레다 녀모보 옹기 끼디기 아주 풍부디 수기 풍부다 소의 풍부가 같이가 나디 레다 녀모 옹기 끼비 풍부가 버텔라 아니 가서서는 잡아두지 동아서 잡아두지 동아서 제자디 잡아두지 동아래 띵한 쪽에다 동아이 하고야 동아코라 삼로코로 코고 맞지나 하고야 갈래 하고 그래 제자디 한가지디 동아래다 하서다 잡아두지 동아서야디 반에 가서 두지기 동아 잡아두지 동아서 가는지 레고서 레다 녀모보 옹기 라와메바 레다 녀모 옹도 유르체네 끼디기 풍부텔라 다 맞으게 두지 잡아두지 동아서 그러네.
These three types of suffering. The first, that of physical, mental suffering, which is the sensational feeling of suffering. That this is suffering is easy to understand and is widely acknowledged. The second type, whilst not widely acknowledged, if one investigates and thinks about it, it can be understood, the suffering of transient happiness. One can understand that all our experiences of happiness are transient, and that they lead to are followed by further experiences of suffering, and therefore worldly happiness is not worthy of striving for. So this is, whilst not widely unknown, it certainly can be understood without great difficulty. The third type of suffering, that of all-pervasive suffering, or the full name, all-pervasive suffering of conditioning, this is much more difficult to understand. In particular, it doesn't come to the mind readily. What it refers to is that through our contaminated karma and afflictions, we achieve this basis of suffering, these 5 aggregates. And having this basis of suffering, these 5 aggregates, this is the illustration of all-pervasive suffering. These very contaminated aggregates are our all-pervasive suffering, are an expression of all-pervasive suffering. Important to be clear why our physical and mental aggregates are pervaded by suffering, why they are an illustration of all-pervasive suffering. And this is because the reason that we experience suffering, both the suffering of physical and mental pain as well as the suffering of transient happiness, is because we have these contaminated physical and mental aggregates. So for example, we are a little bit cold, so therefore we're experiencing the first type of suffering, the suffering of physical pain. Then we get nice and warm, and we experience now the happiness of this transient happiness of being warm, and that happy feeling is the second type of suffering, that of transient happiness, the suffering of transient happiness. So because we can feel both hot, the reason we can feel hot and cold is because we have these aggregates. If we didn't have aggregates such as these, aggregates that have been accumulated through contaminated karma, we would not experience suffering. And all ordinary beings like ourselves who have aggregates that have been achieved through contaminated karma and afflictions, whether humans or gods, they experience suffering because of having these contaminated aggregates. Those humans and gods, though, who have aggregates that have been accumulated through virtue and prayer, their aggregates, whilst they may look like that of a human or that of a god, they have been accumulated due to very different causes, and therefore they are not the basis for suffering, and they don't experience the suffering of physical and mental pain, and they don't experience the suffering of transient happiness. And that is because of the different cause. The one set of aggregates comes from contaminated karma and afflictions, the other comes from virtue and prayer. So as long as we have these contaminated aggregates, we have the basis upon which we will suffer. And therefore it's said that these aggregates are pervaded by suffering. And in order to attain freedom, it's these aggregates we need to be freed from. To become freed of these aggregates, we need to become freed of the causes that lead to them. And that is what we need to abandon.
Onda dunga shebar cha se sanyu jumdan di dunga sa ha ko gure ha ko de kimse shin ko gure se dunga dire da dunga yu du ga chaba du dunga sa sum dire se sang ara zolo du samda da kar du lamna da chowa dunga nya de dunga ro wa gabriel ya ji ji bura cha sho ro wa ni yu dunga le do da de ne gi chowa dunga da yu dunga ga ya ma yin ba da nga su gi phung ba da phung phung a de gi ni ka de du ji dunga le do se sang ara zolo yo de dunga ma de shen ga min do da dunga이 dunga도 교회 dunga도 뒤지 dunga도 디숨 차도 제가 dunga 시아바 자스 디숨 디시 디수 dunga래스 다디 dunga래 디팅 한줄 거예요 말다 디네자 디기 디여바 장한줄 강하리고 제가 한줄 때 강하들 타고 와서 제가 다디 요야 디 dunga이 교회 dunga도 교회 dunga지 보다 가왔던 리고스네 대신에 뒤지기 dunga들 레고 그러고 다디 뒤지기 dunga데다 아니 간스 연구도 람나 제가 그 유디 군주 덴바세야래 예제래 세상 안쪽에 수기 풍부하디야 아주게 추름숨이 되고 아주 레디 개화래 아주 수기 풍부기에게 아주 미기에게 레디 개화래 추름이야 이나양 딜레레 딜레디기 유디 가려서 kunlo들라 나세 나라싱이 두버진베제 나진치요다 세상 나세 디 녀모르와 세상 디 녀모래 녀모 디기 군에 나지 아니 다신 마리바티 군에 나지 아주 어당아 추름숨 레시사고래 레디 사네 아니 양치 미케와데 양자디가라 녀모바 나네 세바데 렘바세 녀모보 조치데 기고래 진짜 레나 녀모메 니게게 투모도 루갸레제 능아주 미디케와데 마도 레치부 여바 사베네 녀모바디 로보 녀모바메나 미케와데 투고마데 진짜 데네 연상 나도 규디 세상 나도 디 둥아죠 규디 가레라네 레나 녀모바레 에세지 다도 녀모바세다 녀모베디 오미키베 레세 디데세 디군지 될 군주 대바라게 해서지 영아도 동아에 유디니 보디 레 녀모바체 녀모바디 원게 레사비 레 어디니 레다 녀모바디 군주 대바래 제가 디니데 방고 그래서 디마바바이나 안 동안에 타요 말해서 다 디 방고 그래서 또 군주 방와 자세 디스모르다
When the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths, he first taught true sufferings, and he taught that true sufferings are to be known. What are these true sufferings? Suffering of physical and mental pain, suffering of transient happiness, and all-pervasive suffering. And of these three types, because we have these contaminated aggregates, the third of these sufferings, the all-pervasive suffering, we have the basis upon which we do experience suffering of physical and mental pain, as well as the suffering of transient happiness. Therefore, all our problems, all our difficulties come about because we have these contaminated aggregates. And where do these contaminated aggregates come from, or this experience of all-pervasive suffering? Well, we're all humans, and as we know, we've achieved this result of a rebirth as a human due to the accumulation of virtue in the past, in particular the virtue of ethical restraint. That is the virtuous karma that we accumulated, the karma of ethical restraint, that led to a good rebirth as a human being. So we're experiencing a rebirth in a higher realm as a human, which has been accumulated through a karmic cause which was virtuous, that of ethical restraint. But whilst that cause is one of virtue, it is not pure. It is mixed with at least the ignorance of self-grasping, if not other afflictions too. So because the accumulation of the virtue of ethical restraint was contaminated by the afflictions, at the very least the ignorance of self-grasping, that virtuous karma is not pure. Therefore, the result of rebirth as a human, that cause not being pure, our aggregates are also contaminated. Because the karma is contaminated, the aggregates are contaminated. Because the karma is contaminated due to the presence of the afflictions, even though that particular karmic imprint was virtuous. So here we see, first, that suffering is being known. Then, what is the source or the origin of suffering? It is the afflicted minds that contaminate even the virtuous karma that is accumulated. Therefore, it's the afflicted minds in particular that have to be abandoned. And this is the second noble truth, that of true origins, or the truth of origins. And these true origins are to be abandoned. This was the second line that the Buddha Shakyamuni taught. And Buddha, having taught that suffering is to be known, true sufferings are to be known, and true origins are to be abandoned, we now understand that the true origins refers to contaminated karma accumulated through our afflicted minds. Afflicted minds such as anger, attachment, ignorance, the whole wide variety of minds, or afflicted minds or disturbing emotions. Whichever afflicted mind one thinks of, whether it's anger or attachment or pride, whichever, before that arises, ignorance arises. This ignorance takes the form of the thought of I. And then that I that appears in a particular way is grasped at as existing in that way that it appears. And this is the ignorance of self-grasping, or the ignorance of true grasping. So there's the thought of the self-existent I wanting happiness, the self-existent I not wanting to suffer. From this mere thought of a self-existent or an inherently existent or truly existent I, naturally follows mine, that which we perceive as belonging to this self-existent I. So, my arm, my possession, my friend, all of these thoughts follow. Because there's this thought of I, then there's that which belongs to I. So therefore, when something that is ours is taken by someone else, and we get annoyed or frustrated, we need it and now it's gone, why do we consider that thing to be mine? Is because we consider there to be the self-existent I. That's the starting point. From this belief in a self-existent I comes the thought of, I own that. That is my possession. And then when it's taken, or we can't find it, afflictions arise, such as anger. And this is the case with all the afflictions, whatever one looks at. And following from the arisal of the affliction, that mere arisal of the affliction leads to the accumulation of non-virtuous karma. But it may be expressed as well through physical action and verbal action. In this way, we accumulate a contaminated karma, non-virtuous karma, through our body, speech, and mind. But this process also follows with virtuous karma. Knowing that we don't want to suffer is this thought of I don't want to suffer. We know we don't want to fall to the lower realms. I don't want to fall to the lower realms. I want a good rebirth. Therefore, I must accumulate the relevant cause. I must develop the practice of ethical restraint. I need to restrain my mind and ensure that this is a mind of restraint, an ethical mind. So this stream here is virtuous. Before, with anger, of course, non-virtuous. This stream is virtuous, but it's still mixed with the ignorance of self-grasping. I want to be happy. I need to practice ethical restraint. So therefore, whilst here we are accumulating virtuous karma, and we of course need to accumulate virtuous karma, it is contaminated virtuous karma, contaminated because of the presence of the afflictions. Other afflictions may be present, but certainly the ignorance of self-grasping will be. And when this virtuous karma ripens as propelling karma and leads to a rebirth, those aggregates, physical, mental aggregates, will be contaminated because the cause was contaminated through the presence of the afflictions. And therefore, we will continue to have contaminated aggregates, the basis upon which we suffer. There's all-pervasive suffering, these contaminated aggregates, the basis upon which we suffer. So therefore, the very root that we need to abandon is this ignorance of self-grasping. Because if we abandon the ignorance of self-grasping, on one hand, no further afflictions will follow, such as anger, attachment, pride, jealousy, and so forth. None of them will follow. But also, the virtue that we accumulate, so not only do we abandon non-virtue, but the virtue we will then accumulate will be free from any contamination because it's freed of the afflictions. And therefore, pure karma, uncontaminated karma will be accumulated. So again, the very root of what we need to abandon is the ignorance of self-grasping.
Da dini ki da nyomo ba di nga seba nga rangshin tuba ra timba tuba zibi de sindi pang gore di pang ba ina di pang bi pang ba sa ba na che ba pang ba de la tarpa se di nga zu gyule ke gore es tarpa da go ba mu de che se di si gore che san di ke gore di ke la lam gong gore lam nyam ne je gom na ma do an di ke tu ma re che san di nya lam nyam ne je gore se de ne shi ba de la lam gong ba ja se su ya di re
when one abandons affliction together with the seeds, one achieves true cessations. So this is what needs to be cultivated. This is what needs to be achieved, the third truth, true cessations. How does one achieve this? Because these true cessations, as they develop, become liberation, liberated from the afflictions and therefore suffering. How does one do so? Through cultivating the path, the mental paths, the true paths. And therefore comes the fourth noble truth, true paths which are to be cultivated.
Ini zang dang ang juga tadi jibu tinggi kapsul lam nyala cede tarba dunyi ke samba cede desi tad nyomo ba sabana ceba pangbe tarba se togu sibi di dunyi ke samba de shukchim ke janggu gore di tarba di togu sambe samlo di yane yando samta diri cezan di dunyi ke tarba dunyi dumba ki ma ke wa de ngang zo di shukchim ke go ma karma ke wa garchine ki go ma lamna ngang zo ke desi shegi dunga gyue dunga da chaba duju dunga de kyön thonggo mare dele yenden daje di döndü yerti go var chizan dil kyön ma thong ain za di pang de gyu den pang bar de be dele targo sen be tardo ge samba de thuggo mare dele tardo ge samba male du an dele ganas tha go re di gyu gar re di pang go sen be sam de che khora sam khora tang go mare ma da wa za den di gyu nyomo ba de pang go sen be sam li go mare di nyomo ba pang go sen be sam male du nyumada pangba ti thogu se besam da ligo ma chesa thaba doni ge sam malewa di yumchen dire a zo nyumba panya gi pangbo se besam da ligo ma di pangbo do se besam lo shuchen bol na di pangbi thaba thogu se besam lo shuchen bol ko ra shu gi le go re chesa nyumba de pangbo se be ge samle de kyun da thar pangbo se besam lo shuchen malewa yumchen gar re lam na a zo gi yu dunga da chaba du dunga ni de le kyun thong go ma kyun ma thong wa za Delia yenden daji ki di na to di janya rubye ki dondala bezu che dondeng ye de go ra di za di kyo ma thong yin za na ga zo ke di dong yu ju ane yomo pa de pang de ge sam pa de ma le ba de che sa de ne yin za da ga zo ki 코위기 동아들이야 균 마통아 전 균 통하게 균 하고에 된다라 다지 균 디디디디디 균 모르지고 되는 마 모르지야 돼 가상가 저기 샤바네 가서 동아라 네비 차기 차이야 동아 되는데 요래 안 장야 되네 요래 이다라게 동아 되네 요래 세디 가서 동아데 셰자 당아지 밀게베나 가르겨선 밀게나 안 가서래 삼르다나 될야 아니 지게 미 동아 가르가르 요래선 dunga ki sampasa dunga to didi yor didi resa janga ki dunga ki sampasa dene dunga tu yu ko na samta sa na dunga sum samta sa dunga na bata ma sa chesa je dunga ji samta ta so su dunga samta ngan se dunga samta na ta maragi dunga dine yor sang ju ngode re chi go wa chesa dine samta o dine samta de dine ngan ngode o da di resha sambe ha ngotho yo o da di dunga resha sambe dine ngotho 야네 samta da di one delya tike ta di mya di ko ya mindu sambe samlodi dela tharduge samlodi shu she rugor ba dela tharduge samlodi ka je shu che ro na di gyudi nyombo ba de pangu do sambe di yonsa nyombo ba gyudi di resha che di pangu do sambe panduge tani samba shu che ro do tar dele tarbe tarba sa toku sambe tarba do ni samba shu che ri go che sang nan zo gyula tarba do ni samba do shu che le tu go ma 지상 타바더니 삼바 슈침불리에게 된다라 마 저기 동아다 강아다 쳐서 모처럼 지네 시야디 디레다 디시고 송고로 와드네사 동아 시오고레 동아 디디레다 세야다 동아 규디네 되는 용어다 세는 모처 시야디 디레.
So you heard at the beginning of this talk then, practitioner of intermediate capacity then is striving for liberation or striving for freedom. And that means freedom or liberation from the afflicted minds together with their seeds. When this thought then is uncontrived, when the practitioner is spontaneously striving for liberation, when this is an ever-present thought for them, an ever-present thought of wanting to be freed from the afflictions together with their seeds, they are a practitioner of intermediate capacity. Hearing this, one may give rise, and one in the past too, one may have given rise to the wish to become such a practitioner. But the truth is, it's difficult for us to give rise to the wish to be liberated from suffering in a way that is powerful and transformative. And the reason why we have not yet given rise to such a powerful and transformative desire to be freed of samsara is because we have not yet to come to understand or to know this first noble truth, the truth of suffering. In particular, the second two of the threefold division, the suffering of transient happiness and all-pervasive suffering. Until we give rise to the wish to be freed from these two types of suffering as well as that first, we will not have a real wish for liberation. And again, the reason we don't yet have an overwhelming wish to be freed from suffering is because we don't really understand what suffering is. In particular, the subtler presentation of suffering of transient happiness and the far subtler presentation of all-pervasive suffering of conditioning. And until we come to understand those two types of suffering, we cannot give rise to the wish to be freed from them, because they will remain unknown to us. And therefore, we will continue to have our mind dominated primarily about the achievement of worldly happiness. We will see that as the goal to put our energy into, and we'll take great joy in achieving these small results. And there will be very little space or capacity for the thought of actual liberation. So therefore, in order to give rise to determination to abandon the sufferings of samsara in its entirety, the sufferings of samsara need to be known in their entirety. So where the meditator would be at this point is they would have already engaged in the meditations that are shared with a practitioner of initial capacity, and they would have given rise to an overwhelming wish to ensure that they do not again fall into the lower realms. They will have no doubt about the possibility of falling in the lower realms and the unbearable suffering there. That same strength of mind now needs to be developed to the so-called upper realms as well, coming to see that wherever one is born in the upper realms, one suffers. As long as one remains bound in the prison of samsara through these chains of the afflictions, one suffers. The way to give rise to this realization, is to reflect repeatedly over a sustained period on this presentation of suffering. And this presentation of suffering is presented, as we looked at tonight, in three parts, or a threefold presentation. There's also a sixfold and an eightfold presentation. And all of these should be reflected on, because the stronger our understanding of both the breadth and the subtlety of suffering, the stronger will be our determination to be freed of suffering. And therefore, the stronger our wish for liberation from suffering. Again, and lastly, in order to generate the wish for liberation, suffering has to be known.
Lam Rim Sonye Chasan Dembashi Di Corson Gore, that don't do not Lam Rim Yamlen China Shedi, Dembashi Corson Gore, Dumati Pangore, Payalea, and Chike, you Nomobati Pangores, and the Lam Compores, Como Condat in the Desert. This is Lam Rim Yamlet, Dembashi Yamlet from Gore. Down Zugi, Dembashi Kibu Jingical Yamlet, Dembashi Yamlet. 전주선반의 냠내지에 덴바시 냠는 지근단 거래 덴바시디 냠는 안에 샘전 탐지에 삼다시 덴바시 냠나도 차바침도 쉬지 봐. 다 샘전 탐지에 삼마다 소소라나 탈바토에 도나 삼단 덴바시 냠는지도 네 가서래 기에 오마기다 냠되다라지 냠는지다 사순 거래. 근데 나제에 당도 되루라 아니가 전주선 람 냠는 지그스 덴바시 냠는지에 나기로 냠는 집에 덴바시 냠는 집에 디마도 줘서요 마다가 집발에 냠는 제타 또 조상 검탕다 삼다나 됐습니다만 된다라 가지를 둥아이 유 둥아 타고 둥아이 유 레다 녀모 받 빵고도 제빵 델레 빵배 빵바 탈바 토고도 진짜 심지어 탐제디 토야 삼단에 잡아주면서 대토 제산디 탈바세디 토발라 뇨모바 탐제 빵바 탈바 토야라 아니 가르고고 쓰는 것도 람냠네 지고래서 냠네 람냠네 지야들 람고미야 들어와 제산 뒤에갑에 람냠네 지야나라 나에갑에 냠네 지야디 람냠네 지야데 다 람냠네 지라기 돼서 람라 됐습니다 삼 나나카레 마다 제당 가마도 그에 람냠네 지야데 람냠네 제비고 고바 가려서는 빠야디 뇨모 빠야데 뇨모 빠야데 但뇨모 빵고자 뇨모 빠야야 심슈 전부 깨게 된다라 가르치고 그러는데 교인이 누가지 교인들이 뒤로 교인을 세리시고 숨고를 진짜 교인 삼다디 뇨모 빠야게 삼로 숙천부 깨게 된다라 심슈 깨게 된다라 뇨모 보게 교인 가서 뇨모 보게 교인다 콜게 교인들이 시고래 그래서 이 뇨모 보게 교인 시 하고야다 되니 뇨모 빠도 누가 숙천 깨게 된다라 거기 누가 마소에 누가 예에 누가 사 이다게 누가 사 레 누가 미 누가 되는데서 장가망보다 말아셔야지 뇨모버 빠야기 되니기 숙치무게 된다래 디시고래 진짜 뇨모버 빠야기 되니 숙치물래는 뇨모 빠야라 냠는 제가서 람 냠는 제들이 람 냠는 제수도 가서 차받침 베시 봐야 람 냠는 제 람가라서는 잠니제 자주쌤 신소파신 그래 디레 다 람냠네 진짜 단다 디레 제사다 디나데 람림 자사 디레 람림 냠네 제스나 디레 다 차바치메 취 냠네 제스나 디레 제사 냠네 제다 디로 와다 단다 디레
All the texts that you've read on the Lam Rim, and all the teachings on the Buddha Dharma that you would have received, all come down to what we've been looking at tonight, the Four Noble Truths. Because the purpose of the Buddha Dharma is to attain, is for someone to come to gain the knowledge of their actual state, of their actual lived experience. This is to come to understand suffering. That is the experience, the lived experience of samsaric beings. Moreover, you need to understand what is the cause of that suffering? What is it that binds one in this suffering state? Why cannot one just wish it away? What is the origin of this suffering? And thirdly, the Buddha Dharma then presents that this doesn't have to be how it is. There is a state freed from this, a state where all suffering has ceased. And to achieve that cessation of suffering, one needs to cultivate mental paths. There are specific paths to cultivate, and they're which serve to abandon suffering and its causes, and lead to the attainment of cessation of suffering in its entirety. That is the Four Noble Truths. And it's these that are practiced by all practitioners of the Buddha Dharma. So here we are in the context now of training the mind on the path common to the person of intermediate capacity. The reason it says here common or shared with the person of intermediate capacity is because those who are striving for the goal of the Mahayana, enlightenment, for the sake of others, need to know suffering. They need to abandon the causes, and they need to achieve cessation through actualizing the path. And they need to do, the difference is solely the motivation. The practitioner of the Mahayana Dharma will strive to recognize and then abandon suffering together with its causes in order to become a Buddha for the sake of others. The practitioner of the Mahayana Dharma engages in the cultivation of the Four Noble Truths, and therefore all practitioners of the Mahayana Dharma engage in the practice of the Four Noble Truths. And this isn't the case just for practitioners of Sutra, so too for Tantric practitioners. So actual Tantric yogis are striving to overcome suffering through eliminating the origins of suffering, to achieve a state where suffering is ceased through cultivating the paths of the Dharma in their continuum. So they are practicing the Four Noble Truths using the Sutra as a base and Tantra as their practice. So again, all practitioners of the Buddha Dharma practice the Four Noble Truths. They identify suffering. Suffering needs to be known. The suffering needs to be known through reflecting on the general sufferings of the 6 realms, as well as the sufferings of the human experience, presented through a 3-fold, 6-fold, and 8-fold analysis. And that is the foundation to identify with wisdom how pervasive suffering is in our experience. And that then leads to the strength of mind to identify and abandon the origins of our suffering. And so for those who are engaging in the practice of the Four Noble Truths, but within the context of the Mahayana Dharma, engage in these same meditations, but include them in they're included within the 6 perfections because of the presence of the minds of love, compassion, and bodhicitta, making the practices of ethics, generosity, patience, and so forth perfections. So what we've heard tonight then is the most succinct presentation of the entire Buddha Dharma, no matter how one approaches it, whether from the perspective of the Theravada, the Mahayana, the Sutra, or the Tantra. This is the essence, this is the most succinct of presentations of the Buddha Dharma.
Kasa dunga gyuye dunga chawa duji dunga sachi yuwa sum sadiri chesa dunga resha tanga zo chowa dunga ne na zo chabo gyuye dunga sadiri dunga sadiri tanga zo kabri la zo kala na kare na susule digi de sirade tanga dingi dewa mare de lamsang yuwa jo shu tadi mingne gyuye dunga reta samdi dingi dewa mare samena tanga zo phungbo de ine da duji dunga re chesa ko dunga yi ne re dunga chesa yuwa dire dunga re tenen zada dunga dile tar kudu samje dunga dile tar bege yudi garsa dunga yudi garsa yanati nyomo pa lesha nyomo pa sabona cheba pangbi tarba sa de matum tabmidu di tokudu sabige samno di tanga jugi dunga samda dunga yu nyomo pa re chesa nyomo pa panggu re panggudu samda da nyomo pa pangpa tarba sa de matum tabmidu samje di tokudu sambe samno de ngazo yane ado jane de chago re 어두스 지나가 주게다 쇼게는 삼다වෙ나 기디나 동안 탈바세 탑구도 선배 삼다 지산 탈바 토백이 돈다라 이제 람냠네 지고 그래 지산다 소소한 게 되데 람귤이 매나야 람냠네 제약이 김제 가르레 제고비 제비 갑라 가르쳐야 레스는 아니 용화 있는 예제도 주름 소야다 아니 집에 냠네 자 수입에 냠네 자 전주에 냠네 자 어두스 디송은 그 강투도 제 인생백에 삼다 딩아 주기 제야다 제야리 지나 되네 장 주기다 에 그지 냠마데 시바나지 냠마네 가도 사시빙 가도 디고 망보여 봐이나 대수야 권초리야 소와디 냠르 제야다 아니 님부 뜻이 삼다지 디고 샤야 두스네 계주 삼다 딩아 주기다 디링이 셰야디게 삼다나리 then German Masha di Kanjeleda, Dunga Shed, Dunga Kaniki, Kabla Dunga Karayone, gave you Dunga Karayon said, that Dunga Pamojo Modo Shed. That also Zawading Azuki Dunga was on that as a shed that Nyan Dunga Modo Shed, the Chair Mash, sure.
We've looked at tonight then at the Four Noble Truths. And within this, we've looked in a little bit of detail at the 3 types of suffering. So for this talk to have real meaning in your life, then I hope you include what has been heard here in your meditation. When in your meditation, reflect on these 3 types of suffering. The first, that of suffering of transience, the suffering of physical and mental pain. This is easy to understand. So put more energy, having done a little reflection on that, put more into the other 2 types, that of the suffering of transient happiness and all-pervasive suffering of conditioning. Coming to see that all the happiness that we've experienced and happiness that we long for is transient. doesn't last, results in further suffering being experienced, such as disappointment, feeling of loss, a feeling of unfulfillment. Look at that suffering. Then, look at the third type of suffering in some detail. Why do we suffer? Seeing that it comes from causes, the afflicted minds that lead to either non-virtuous karma or virtuous karma, but both, because of the presence of the afflictions, are contaminated. And therefore, we continue to have physical and mental aggregates which are contaminated by the afflictions. So take this threefold division of suffering, include it in your meditation. Because it's only through reflecting on suffering that one will give rise to the wish to be freed of suffering. And it's also then, through having recognized the cause of suffering, one will give rise to the required wish for liberation, which is the wish to be liberated from the afflicted minds together with their seeds. And that is the mind that we need to generate in a way that's powerful, uncontrived. And these points here, don't just leave on the meditation cushion. Incorporate them in your daily life. In particular, when you're experiencing happiness, remind yourself, this is happiness. It's fine to experience. We require these good conditions, but I mustn't be overwhelmed by this. This should not be my primary objective. I have the capacity to achieve something far greater than mere transitory happiness. So use these reflections, refer to them not just in meditation, but out of meditation too. And also in the meditation, having reflected on suffering, and giving rise to wish to be freed from suffering, the last part will be how to do so. Those are the meditations on generosity, ethical restraint, and so forth. You can also include in your meditation here what we've looked at in previous weeks, which is the purification of previously accumulated non-virtue. Because as was said right at the start of tonight's talk, we need to accumulate virtuous minds through giving rise to the wish to be freed of liberation, reflecting on generosity, ethics, and so forth. But we also need to purify what hinders our spiritual development, non-virtue. And that comes through the application of the four opponent powers, that of the powers of regret, promise, basis, and antidote. So we'll leave it here then for tonight. Next week, when we come together, we will continue with this presentation on the sufferings experienced in the human realm, and we'll continue with that then next week. Thank you.